waste emitted power from power plant, car cities to develop a nano ink and coating? Ideally, yes. People are already working on the waste, the carbon waste at least, to make carbon-based materials, and then you can use most of them for the coating. Another question by Subhajit Samanta is, do you think only the sunlight is having a substantial energy to convert CO2 into chemicals over a catalyst, even though if we assume that it is operated at atmospheric pressure? If so, how could the atmospheric CO2 capture over the catalyst from the natural atmosphere when its concentration is close to 450 as per NOAA? That is pretty much low. I have difficulty in understanding your question, but see, the concentration will ideally affect the kinetics of the reaction. So if as soon as the CO2 sits onto your surface, the catalytic surface, generally CO2 is linear, very less reactive, extremely challenging to react. But as soon as it reacts, it comes up onto the surface, CO2 try to bend, right? The bond angle changes, bond length changes. It's no more linear, it becomes reactive. And then and that decides the activation energy. That interaction of the CO2 with the surface decide the activation energy. That's why when I say a different catalyst, that means different catalytic surfaces and their binding. And so that allows you to change the activation energy, and that allows you to use different sunlight, different part of the sunlight. It can be simple visible light, or even the IR light to convert CO2. Right, and lots of people are also using UV light, but then again, you don't have much of UV in the sunlight. So that's the question. The another question, which metal oxide nanomaterials are good for CO2 capture? Generally a basic nanomaterials, right? Because it's like acid-base chemistry. So you can use a magnesium oxide to capture the CO2. Another way is you make the other oxide material basic, like you take a silica, put amines on that. It's a basic now, and you capture the CO2. Although what we are saying is capturing the CO2 will not solve the problem. So it's a good idea to not only capture, but convert the CO2 into useful chemicals and ideally a fuel, and you recycle the CO2. In silica nanoparticle, how do you supply energy to generate free radical? Si oxygen bond is thermodynamically more stable. True. The way we did it is you take a silica, you take a magnesium, and you fill them in a tube and put under vacuum. Now, when you heat magnesium at its melting point, it is in the form of a vapor, and then at that temperature, the magnesium needs oxygen. It's unstable, so magnesium wants to convert into magnesium oxide. So now there is no oxygen in the tube, so it tries to take the oxygen from SiO2, and that's how you break the SiO bond, which you are sure you are right. It's thermodynamically more stable, but we are doing this reaction at say 550 degrees Celsius using the magnesium. What about morphology control after free radical formation in the silica nanoparticles? So what we observe that when you break more and more SiO bond, you are destroying that siloxane network. So obviously the morphology goes down. So you cannot really tune the morphology. You cannot control the morphology once the nanoparticle is already formed. You can only try to protect that morphology, which we observe that until certain concentration of magnesium, you can maintain the morphology of that nanomaterial. And in this particular case, the surface area and the pore volume and the pore size which matter. Anandarup Goswami, I know him. So is it possible to generate these defect sites after ammonia functionalization? Because ammonia silica is known for CO2 absorption. So if we can add that aspect with this, the local concentration may increase. Just a thought. Yeah, that's a very good idea. But as I told you that we need to create a defect. To create a defect, I have to heat at 550 degrees Celsius using magnesium. So these amino sites will not be stable there. But you can do other way around. You create a defect, and then you have an amino functionalization, and it should work. But you need to remember that CO2, if I have amino functionalization, CO2 will capture, the CO2 will get chemisorb at the amine functional group. But my catalyst site is a defect onto the silica. So ideally, the surface diffusion of that CO2 sitting onto the amine surface may not be that efficient that you will able to increase the catalytic activity. So I don't know when to try this, but whether it will work or not, that is something that one has to ask. Can we use DFNS for hydrogen oxidation? So DFNS is again a silica. So by itself it won't, but you can put some active site for doing the hydrogen oxidation reaction. We haven't done it. We are doing a hydrogen dissociation reaction, and it works well, obviously, by using some active site. That's the question by Alesh Sharma. Sabyajyoti Samanta, he asked Professor Vivek, what could be the reasonable approach for obtaining the selective methane from the CO2 over defected DFNS without any co-catalyst? In your case, you achieve CO2 and CH4, both the products. Yeah, that's a very good question. Only the confusion, we haven't used any co-catalyst. It's only the defect. There is no metal. We also wanted to get only methane, no CO. Obviously, there are other processes where you only want CO, not a methane. But in this case, so how do I achieve, or that's the hypothetical answer would be that again I need to tune the defect site. What we learned that by playing with the E centers and NBOFC site, I can tune the selectivity, right? So that's how I have to do to get more methane and less CO. Another question by Chitambar Kulkarni. Thank you for great talk and work. In the active site part of your talk, which is the drive to form of silicon and oxygen radicals, instead of heterocyclic cleavage leading to charge species. In the active site part of your talk, what is the drive to form a silicon and oxygen radical instead of heterocyclic? So this is more the way the reaction with a magnesium at high temperature. Ideally, it could be a heterolytic cleavage of the SiO bond, but it's a stepwise bond breaking. So Mg get one oxygen and forms the OMg bond and then breaks another bond. So maybe I can share you the literature where a teacher mechanism is studied to prove that why it is homolytic and not a heterolytic cleavage of the SiO bond. Ashu Srivastav, how do you change the size of the nanoparticles? There are different ways. One is you change the template, and based on the template size, you get a different size of the particle. You can also change the reaction temperature, reaction time, and you control the growth process. So you don't let them grow, you get a smaller particle. You let them grow for longer time, you get a bigger nanoparticle. Varad asked the question, how can we ensure that all gold nanoparticles will be of the same size after nucleation growth method? So most of the time, if you really want a monodispersed gold nanoparticle, which was not the case in our case, our work is you use the coating agent, and there is something called a burst nucleation, where you create lots of nuclei and have a quick growth. So ideally, you get a monodispersed size, similar size nanoparticle. Vanishka asked the question about in absorption spectra of black hole, it shows a broad band. However, no plasma peak exists there. So can such a system be used for catalytic process as the only at a plasmonic excitation wavelength are less than that? Not all electron can take part in the reaction. No, the broadband absorption is due to the plasma. So you must have seen only the plasmonic peak at say 550, and but now see why you have a 550 plasmonic excitation, because that gold cloud has certain size and shape that which will resonate at that 550 nanometer. But now what we did, we are trying to make a gold cloud of different sizes by changing the size of the particle, and we are trying to ask these gold cloud to interact, right? The couple, and then you have a different gold cloud couple, and then they will resonate at different wavelength. So entire broadband absorption is because of the plasmonic absorption. So all these peaks are the plasmonic absorption peak. So that will produce more and more hot electrons rather than only having around 550 nanometer lambda max. Anonymous, is there any direct method to find out the exact temperature on the surface of a nanoparticle? People generally use indirect means such as carrying out a different reaction. Yes. So that was one of the very big challenge for us. Also, how do I know the surface temperature? I cannot use a thermometer. One of the way we did is you do a chemical reaction. You know that chemical reaction works only at that particular temperature, and if this is and if that reaction is happening, you can say, okay, this is the temperature of your gold surface. But then gold can also act as a catalyst, and that reaction happens. So the best I know, maybe there could be other technique, but the best I know is the Raman spectroscopy, the Stokes anti-Stokes search, which gives you a very good idea about the surface temperature. May not be exactly quantitative because there are some issues, but it's very close. Diksha, stop me when my time is over. I'm keep reading the questions.
Please don't worry. You have nearly 20 minutes, so please continue.
Okay. So. Arkajyoti Chakraborty, are these black gold agglomerated gold nanoparticles which are used for the application? One can say that because there are also black gold examples where people agglomerate it, take a rod shape and agglomerate and you get a black gold. Idea here was to keep a gap between the gold nanoparticles, right? And that gap is some sort of a nanoreactor. That gap's where I have concentration of hot electrons or concentration of electric field, not hot electrons, but the hot thermal hotspot and electric hotspot. electromagnetic hotspot. So when my CO2 goes there, it will get that thermal energy, as well as it will experience that electric field, and which will bend that CO2 and activate that CO2. That was the idea. So it's not really agglomerated. Obviously, there is agglomeration. Dilip, does the silica nanoparticle have pore size and volume? And if yes, it will be helpful for the deposition of gold particle in one other way. Yes, they are porous materials. They have a pore volume, and we can tune the pore sizes and pore volume by simply changing the distances between the fibers. So they have those properties. Most of the porous materials are unknown. How are you quantifying the effect of photothermal heating on carrying out a COL oxidation? So if you only want to know the photothermal heating, then you find out what is the temperature that you achieve by a photothermal reaction. Let us say I take a reaction mixture exposed with the sunlight and reaction, and the temperature of the reaction mixture is 80 degrees Celsius. Now you do another reaction in a dark with no light and do it 80 degrees Celsius and see whether it is really a photothermal effect or it's the hot electron or the electromagnetic field that is playing role in plasmonic catalysis. Most of the time it's not a photothermal effect, but in addition to that, it's the gold plasmonic which make a huge impact on the reduction of the activation energy of these catalytic reactions. This is a very good question by Santosh Aram. How the radicals get stabilized in air? Will it not react with oxygen? This is one of the questions that we puzzled with, that how come these oxygen radicals or the E centers are stable in the air? They are stable in the air. I really don't have a perfect answer, but if you look at, there are several organic molecules, organic radicals, which are also stable in the air. You can even purify them by the column chromatography. So stability is not surprising, ideally, after knowing that there are organic molecules, but why they are stable is still a question that we're trying to understand. It has to do something with the amorphous nature and this random network of the siloxane, which somehow stabilizing these defect sites. But otherwise, we're still struggling to answer that in an experimental way. Subhajyoti Samanta, for an instant, do you emphasize only the CO2 conversion to fuel is a more enough or CO2 splitting, reduction of CO2 coupled with the stream reforming chemical looping? Partial oxidation of methane would be the more profound to fight against the man-made fire. Yes, ideally it's not ideally a good idea to just think about one reaction, CO2 to methane. If I can convert CO2 to a carbon monoxide and hydrogen, right? CO2 plus water gives me CO plus hydrogen. I can use CO plus hydrogen to get me the methane, ethane, methanol, right? So that syngas synthesis, that is also possible. Partial oxidation is also possible. So idea is to convert CO2 into something, convert back the CO2 which is now thrown into the environment as a waste. You don't throw them into the waste, but use that waste CO2 as your feedstock and make useful chemicals and fuels. Silica is ideally not conducting. It's an insulating material. Obviously, if you create a defect, you will have some defect state. Kaushik Goat, what is the stability of black gold with respect to the cycle number? They are very stable because they are sitting onto the silica surface. So they are very stable for various cycles that we did. We did up to 10 cycles and nothing happened. That's from Kaushik Goat, who I know. Somya Pai. My question is regarding last slide you have shown that 2 micromole of gram of methane forms. So even if you have taken 100 milligram of sample of hydrogen, it becomes 0.2 micromole. By which technique you have measured such a small amount of methane? No, by GC will be in an experiment. No, that depends on which GC you use. We have a GC which can detect really, so I think up to 10 ppm of the methane and even less amount of hydrogen. So by the GC you can detect even very small concentration of these gases. Kishore Kampra, why only gold particles? The simple answer is because gold has a plasmonic behavior in it shows up surface plasmon in the visible light. But you can also use silver, you can also use copper. But again, the silver copper has the tendency to oxidize and become oxides. No more plasmonic. So that's why gold is stable and active. That's why you use gold. Obviously, it has its own disadvantage in terms of the expensiveness nature. Sorry. Dr. Lalit Prasad. How much amount of nanocatalysis required to convert how much volume of CO2 into methane. I already showed you a different experiment, like for a depleted silica, we got around 4,000 micromole per gram per hour. For a gold, this was very low, just 2 micromole. But obviously, gold was done with water at room temperature. The other reaction was done using hydrogen, external hydrogen, and at 400 degrees Celsius. So one has to look into that before you compare the different catalysts. Gitanjali Tiwari, what could be the best research topic in nanotechnology? Obviously, I'm biased. We have to solve the climate change problem, and nanotechnology is the best way. Obviously, again, I'm biased, but I think it's the best way to take care of that problem. Is there any possibility of use of some cheapest material instead of gold in future? Yes, I think that's what we are also trying to do, and several other groups are trying to do. Hopefully, in coming years, we will see some cheaper material doing the same thing what gold is doing. How does the catalytic activity increases? So this is a question by Bharat. How does the catalytic activity increases after burning of the carbon in sequential cycle? No, what I said that's what we thought, that when catalytic activity goes down, we thought that there is the CO2 gets converted into carbon, and that carbon is coating the defected site. And then if that is the thought, then the best way is to treat that into the air and burn away the carbon. But if you burn away the carbon, what you said is correct. Why will it increase the catalytic activity? It's not because of the carbon. So what we observe that every time I heat in air, I produce more and more E-centers and more NBOSC sites. I haven't explained you the mechanism, but in the mechanism, the SiOH gets converted into SiH at the end of the reaction. And when I treat the SiH again into the oxygen, you get a Si radical, right? And again, the same way the NBOSC radical, NBOSC sites. And that's how you are able to, there's an increase in the catalytic activity. Danish Babu Charge, tell about your opinion of using MOF as a catalyst for CO2 conversion. I'm not expert in this field, but I can. There was already a talk, and there's lots of interesting work going on where people are using MOF as a CO2 conversion. Obviously, the advantage of using inorganic material over organic material is the stability. You can see I can heat silica 500 degrees Celsius, 600 degrees Celsius. I cannot do that with a MOF, right? So the stability could be better when I use inorganic material over the organic MOFs. Yes, Chaturvedi, can the same phenomena be linked with the solar energy harvesting? Yes, it's the same thing. So it's a solar energy harvesting. Solar panels convert the photon into electrons. Here I am trying to get electrons as well as the heat and trying to use both of them to do the catalytic conversion. HP, what are the reaction on which these catalysts are used? You can think of different reaction that based on the active site, right? If I put a palladium, you can do a CC coupling reaction. If I'm using say iron or ruthenium, I can do a hydrometathesis reaction, hydrogenolysis reaction, metathesis reaction. So that depends on which active site you're using. Naimat Kalim Bari. So what is the selectivity of methane? And CO2 is not known. We also produce CO2. So selectivity of methane was around 80%. We wanted 100%, but we haven't reached that level at even today. Kishore Kampra, any other metal nanoparticle can help in the process? Yes, ideally gold is not that active as a catalyst site. Gold is good for harvesting the solar energy because it has a surface plasma and invisible light. So we're now trying to see whether I can marry the gold with some other metal nanoparticle which is active, which is known to be active site, and see whether I can force the surface plasma from gold to other nanoparticle and carry out that reaction. That's the project that one of my students, Mr. Rishi Verma, is doing, and he already got some interesting result in that sense. Yogendra Kumar Lahir, is the process is cost effective in case we use methane as a fuel? No, I want to produce methane, right? I want to produce methane from CO2 and use methane as a fuel in your car. So, and that's what you're doing, right? If you look at the CNG, it's 98% methane. So it's already cheaper or cost effective. Only thing is the process is not cost effective. So we have to make a process which is cost effective. You cannot buy a 1 liter methane using 1,000 rupees when you get a 1 liter petrol in 75, right? So that gap has to be designed, and that's the only way to solve this is having some fundamental discovery in the field of catalysis to get me a highly productive process to convert CO2 into methane. Prasanjit Sen, important target seems to be converting CO2 to methane by reacting it with hydrogen, but producing sufficient H2 itself is a challenge. However, burning CH4 produces CO2 back, if I'm right. So I'm able to produce H2 in the first place. If we use H2 as a fuel, why bother converting CO2 to methane? what do we do again? Yeah, that's very good thought, Prasenjit. Several things you shared. First is I need an external hydrogen. Exactly. That's one of the limitations of this challenge. This process will work only if the hydrogen is freely available. Either you take that hydrogen from water splitting, or nowadays you have a free electricity, not in India but most of the European countries, you have free electricity coming from the solar panel in the time when it is not used. So you use that free electricity, do electrochemistry, electrocatalysis, split the water and produce large amount of hydrogen at a very cheap rate, and you use that hydrogen to convert CO2 to methane. Now the question is, another very good question that you ask is, why do I don't use hydrogen as a fuel rather than putting that hydrogen into CO2? Two reasons. One, storage of hydrogen is still a challenge, right? You cannot really store the hydrogen. You need a huge tank, maybe the tank bigger than your car. And I'm sure you are not going to put that big tank behind your car to drive hydrogen car. There are some hydrogen storage material, but most of them work at a lower temperature. So again, you need energy to bring that material to lower temperature. So that's not energy efficient. Obviously, H2 is also unsafe. Whereas when I add H2 to CO2, I solve the problem of hydrogen storage. At the same time, I solve the problem of CO2. You said CO2 is converting into methane, but that's what I said. That's what I keep saying in my talk. You convert CO2 into methane, and when you burn the methane, it converts back the CO2, which is not going into the environment because I'm taking that CO2 and converting back into the methane. It's a cyclic process. Imagine a cycle. CO2 to methane. Methane gives you the energy, gives you back the CO2. You convert that CO2 back to methane. So if one can get that cyclic CO2 to methane, methane to CO2 using economical processes, it solves the problem of energy and no issue of safety, no issue of storage. How this catalyst is useful in catalytic converter, Vedichi Madhu. Yes, you can put a platinum onto the silica surface and use as a catalytic converter. It will work like any other catalyst. Debas is saying, okay, lots of my friends are asking the question. So very nice talk, Vivek. Which substitute do you think will work than gold? This is related to the cost calculation of any practical purpose. Yes, we are trying different material. The best option is silver or copper, although we are trying several others, which I really don't want to disclose right now, but you can have look into the literature. But let us say even we don't able to substitute the gold, and gold is the one which is doing this process. But if I can increase the productivity of the process using the gold, then the cost calculation will still be good. It will be still an economical and sustainable process. So it's not the cost of the gold, it's the productivity of the methane, which is low. If I increase the productivity of methane, I don't need to worry about the expensive gold. And we have lots of gold anyway in this country. Chittaranjan Patra, which catalyst is best? Gold nanoparticle alone or silica supported gold nanoparticle? From ICT. So, when I say a best catalyst, it's not only about the activity, it's not about the productivity, it's also about the stability, right? Your catalyst means it produces large amount of methane from CO2, and it should do that for a long time, for hours, days. Industry wants the catalyst to work for years, right? So if I only take a gold nanoparticle, you know very well, you are expert in this field, that the gold nanoparticle will undergo oxidation, they will undergo sintering, so the catalytic activity will go down with time. When I support them onto the silica, I'm fixing them onto the support, and they don't move, they don't undergo surface diffusion, and that way you keep them, the particle size remains same. You can also have a thin layer of coating or something to also stop the oxidation, and that's why most of the time the silica supported or any other supported nanoparticles shows a better catalytic activity, including stability. So that's the answer. MS Hariom Sawant, I have heard that graphene also absorbs CO2, so why not to use we use graphene product for constructing building and infrastructure, because graphene also has strength more than steel and iron. Graphene may absorb some amount of CO2 because of its high surface area and some gaps between these layers, possibly if you have a stacked graphene, but that amount will be very low. I don't know the exact number, but if you want to again have a sustainable process, you really need to have a high efficiency of CO2 capture. The people say it's around 5 micromole per gram, and not only capture capacity but also the kinetics, right? You're saying put these into the building material, if I coat the building graphene with the building materials, you can imagine how much time CO2 is in touch with the graphene. So it won't really capture most of the CO2. So I don't think that concept will work, because it's not only of the capture, right? What will I do if I just capture that? You have to convert that, right? So one has to find out a way where you develop a material which will capture and convert the CO2 using the sunlight. Attendee, known sir, can you please explain car example which is running lifetime? So that was a very dream project. Most of you may not like it, but that's what I think is the solution. What I'm saying is, I fill my gas cylinder or gas chamber that you have in your CNG car with CO2, and I have a catalytic reactor which converts CO2 into methane using water and sunlight, right? You split the water into hydrogen by electrochemistry or photochemistry, and use that hydrogen, react with CO2 to get you the methane, and you burn the methane in your engine, drive the car. And once methane burns, you get a CO2, you take that CO2 back into the reactor and convert back to the methane. It's a dream project or a dream process that we should have, and it's possible. The science is already there. It's only about the efficiency and the productivity. My other collaborator, Pabitra Nayak from TIFRH. The question is blackboard activity. Do you think concentrated sunlight would have a higher efficiency? You have shown a linear response, but the range is quite small. Yeah, I agree. That's what I said. The productivity range is very small. Now, what Pavitra is trying to say that why do I really need to harvest the light this way using surface plasma? I can just concentrate entire solar light by some lens and put it on your material. So if you do that, you only get a heat, right? You're not. I'm not sure that you're going to really get because if the surface area is low, the number of photon capture capacity will not increase if I put lots of concentrated light into it, right? It has its own kinetics limit. And if I concentrate that light and put it on nanoparticles, I'm sure that high temperature will melt that nanoparticle and you will do more nano. And if you are not in a nanoscale, again, you're not going to have a catalytic activity, right? Because it also depends on the size. So that's the challenges with the concentrated sunlight. Yogita, regeneration of a defected silica happens in air. Why silica is not getting oxidized? With each regeneration, defects are increasing. Why it is so? So I already answered both of these questions, so I will skip that. Arun Bala, if you know the agglomerate, how to prevent from agglomeration of a nanoparticle? So our nanomaterial doesn't generally agglomerate. Obviously, it's not 100% perfect because we're putting it on the silica. But if you really want to use nanoparticle as such, people use the coating agent to prevent agglomeration. Ranjit Rati, cannot we synthesize artificial chlorophyll to convert CO2 to glucose, thereby solving the two problems at one time? Yeah, that's another very good idea, and there are people working on this field, right? Where rather than converting CO2 to methane, we should produce glucose and other food products. Obviously, the best way is let nature do their job and give us a food, and we repair our mistake of producing lots of CO2 because we need a fuel, right? So if we can at least solve the problem of a fuel, I think that will solve the problem of a climate change up to a certain extent. Dr. Sanjay Gupta, for the searching of the active site or defect, do you have any theoretical study like DFT? Yes, I'm not a DFT expert, but we have collaboration with Professor Ayan Datta from ISCS Kolkata. So the defected silica work, I haven't shown the DFT calculation because I'm not an expert, but we do use the DFT calculation to most of the time to understand the mechanism of how the catalyst is working. It is other way around, could be the DFT calculation, DFT scientists will tell us that, okay, this could be a better material to do it. But it is very, very useful technique. Sir, can we capture any other gases other than the carbon dioxide? Yes, again, it's a tuning of your porosity, tuning of your surface, which will allow you to capture one gas over the other gas. Mayuri Dalvi, tell us, is there any impact of atmospheric gases and small particles on the reaction carried out? If yes, how to minimize it? So atmospheric gases means, obviously it will have the impact, not the non-reactive gases like a nitrogen or the helium. But if you have a water, a moisture, water vapors in your gases, then if your catalyst is not stable, it does make a significant impact onto your catalytic activity. Harit, will the effect of shape of a nanoparticle will have impact on the performance of the plasmonic coupling of your work? Obviously, yes. I think the shape will have its own plasmonic behavior, its own metallic electronic cloud, and when you bring them together, obviously that will also affect on the plasmonic coupling of your work. Dr. Barun Bera, can we stop at methanol in CO2 to methane conversion process? Why do we have to make gas like methane, which is difficult to store? Yes, one can also, one has to again tune the thing, but the second part of your question where you said, why do I need to make a gas? But you see the CNG is supposed to be the green fuel, right? And CNG is nothing but a methane, 98% methane. So it's not a problem of converting methane gas. Methanol, otherwise, I'm a bit biased against the methanol. It's toxic chemical. Lots of the European lab doesn't allow you to even use it. When I was a postdoc, my lab banned methanol is extremely toxic. And you cannot really, so people are trying to convert methanol into dimethyl ether. So again, dimethyl ether is also a gas. So it is better to have a methane and use it as a CNG. And it's easy for gases to get converted into another gas. Handling will be easy. Because I'm looking at the cyclic CO2 to methane, methane to CO2 concept. Dr. Wilson, Basco, Paul, Michael, atmospheric CO2 have a contamination. Will it affect the predicted catalytic mechanism? What if the methane production is deteriorated by the contamination? That's a very good question. Yes, atmospheric CO2 will have different contamination. Say, I already explained about the water. Say there could be a NOx, which say deactivate the reactive site. But then there could be a several solution. One could be a simple engineering solution that before I pass that atmospheric CO2 to reach my catalyst, I put one more catalytic material which will take care of say NOx. One more catalytic material which will take care of the water moisture. So you will have a stepwise purification of the CO2 and then you convert into methane. So it could be one combined material, one hybrid material, or it could be layers of materials. It's more engineering way that can solve this thing, this challenge. Atri Malik, is DFNS, about which you wrote earlier paper also, going to be a potential candidate to fight COVID-19 in near future? What are the possibilities? So that my Facebook post, which not a lot of people liked it, is having a very different idea, which I don't want to really discuss here, but that I think I'm in discussion with some of the pathologists, and they seem excited, but everyone is busy with their own science. We don't know. Although we are exploring this for some other RNA extraction application where silica is needed to selectively bind and extract the RNA. So that part is happening. The diagnostic part is happening. The treatment part we don't know right now. Varad, how do you remove MnO2 after the initial reaction? It's a magnesium oxide. So you treat the magnesium oxide with say dilute HCl, and magnesium oxide get dissolved. This is the work done by one of my students, Mr. Amit Mishra, and he optimized the condition to selectively remove the magnesium oxide. Somin Saha, after making a nanosilica as you described, MgO is also present. How do you separate? Okay, the same question, and I already explained by simply treating with the dilute HCl. Rohini, also it would be interesting to see if we can bring the activity below 100 degrees Celsius, whether the heat produced in the vehicle machine can be directly utilized, ruling out the need of a nanoparticle as such. Yes, there are other groups like Kanishka Biswas from JNCSR where they are using this excess heat to do different chemistry. But here, in this catalytic process, it's not only about the heat. If I only put the heat, I'm not going to get the same productivity. It's the heat as well as the electromagnetic field. This plasmonic behavior. I'm not able to explain the detailed mechanism of how it works because that itself will be a talk. But that is more important. Those electromagnetic hotspot, polarizing the molecule, activating the CO2 is more important than the heat. Our dream is to do the reaction at a room temperature, but I would still need a gold or something like that. Saimuya Pai, for efficient CO2 conversion, what is the target value of CO2 needed to be converted for methane for commercialization? I don't really exactly remember the number of millimole per gram, so I can't answer, but more is better, but I don't know the exact number. Shreyashi Chattopadhyay, is it possible to use other catalytic active metal oxide like CEA instead of silica? Yes. But you are late. We are already doing that. We already started thinking in that direction, and we did some experiment in that. So ideally, yes, you exactly had this thing in our ongoing project. Have you done any catalytic experiment by making plasmonic metal nanoparticles bimetallic? Yes, that's another thing that lots of people are doing. Right, this field is extremely competitive. So we're trying, and as I said, we have less students and small lab space. So we're trying to find out a different way of, a different approach of tackling this problem, but one can also make the biomechanics do this. There is something called HP. Will the particle shape changes after the catalysis reaction? Did you observe? We did not observe the change in the particle size, obviously not the DFNS. Gold nanoparticle, there may be some change, but it's difficult to see because they are very agglomerated. Aslam Sheikh, how it is determined that methane is more powerful greenhouse gas than carbon dioxide? Okay, that's very good point. Methane is ideally 25 times more powerful than the carbon dioxide, right? It depends on the methane lifetime in the environment, how much which part of the light it absorbs and how much it absorbs. If you have a more higher light, it has a more potential to create a greenhouse. But again, what I keep repeatedly saying is methane is not going into the environment. I'm converting CO2 into methane, burning methane, driving my car or driving your engine, like doing the work, and then you get back the CO2, which is again converted into methane. That's very important point to understand. Otherwise, why will anybody convert CO2 to methane, which has a 25 times more powerful greenhouse gas? Somen Shaha, how your nanosilica is different from microsilica or silica fume? So microsilica obviously is a micrometer. Silica fume is also in a bigger size. So they have a lower surface area. Our has a higher surface area. We have a very unique pore size, moving from 5 nanometer to 25 nanometer. You don't see any other material which has such a unique pore size. It has very high pore volume. And the most important thing is surface area is highly accessible. You can reach every point of the surface area, which is not possible with several microporous and even a mesoporous material like MCM41 and HDF15. Attendee, please explain how black gold is helpful in converting seawater into drinkable water. As I explained, black gold has the ability to harvest the solar photon and converting into heat, and I use that heat to convert seawater into the vapor, and I then condense the vapor. The vapor is always pure, right? You don't vaporize the salt, so you get a pure water. That's how you use the black gold without using any energy. What kind of a co-surfactant you use in your experiment? So we use pentanol. There one this is question by Sini Mira. So there can be a we in fact did a study where we showed that when we change the co-surfactant, we get a different fiber density and different sizes of the nanoparticle, because that stabilizes the lamellar interfaces, and the stabilization decides whether I have a smaller microemulsion droplet or a bigger microemulsion droplet. Baba Saheb, what do you think about controlling CO2 production by using renewable feedstock such as biomass instead of fossil feedstock from chemical energy produced instead of converting CO2 to methane? Is something like prevention is better than cure? Yes, but why do I burn the biomass ideally? I don't know why how does the biomass is the green fuel? I have again bias with this because you are using something which either it should be a food product for us or for animals, right? So CO2 is already a waste, right? You are not going to stop using the fossil fuels. You are going to produce CO2. So it is better to use the waste and convert into methane. Suresh Umre, can the carbon-based material like C3N4 work for CO2 reduction? Yes, there are lots of paper nowadays where people are using C3N4 for CO2 reduction, but obviously again the problem is the same, the productivity, and obviously in this case the stability of the C3N4. Priya Maheshwari from BARC, I guess. Can we use such a kind of material in the form of a coating on, let's say, a car or a building so that carbon dioxide can be absorbed and we may not able to convert to methane but can reduce carbon footprint? Yes, that should be one of the way to go. You put your car, building, road, everything and capture the CO2. But then what will happen next? What I will do with that captured CO2 is the question, right? So I personally don't think the capturing CO2 is going to solve our problem. It's more dangerous, right? Now the way it is now, you capture all the CO2, dig a hole in the sea and put all the CO2 in there. And one day there will be earthquake and all the CO2 will come out. And you can imagine the effect on the global warming. The CO2 capture alone will not solve the problem. It has to be conversion. It has to be conversion in chemicals or fuel or something else useful. I'm not repeating the question that is already answered. Debirina, do you detect the temperature of the water overall? It is the total temperature nearby the silica black gold. No, the temperature I showed you is the temperature of the water, but then we did this anti-Stokes experiment in SERS where we have the temperature of the black gold surface. So this, how would you would the results have been different if instead of tuning the size and gap, we perform it independently? So so the question is, I cannot tune the gap without changing the size, right? How do I change? How do I bring them together? There's no way I can do that. That was the first 2 years went in this. How do I tune the gap? So the only way to tune the gap is I have to change the size. If you can do that, that will be very interesting to know. Anis Rao, I might have missed this. Using Raman spectroscopy, the surface temperature was estimated to be around 150, but you were able to reduce the CO2, which is at 500. I guess I am missing something. Yes, you're missing something. Is in the case the 400 degrees Celsius was done using the defected silica, whereas the 150 degree was done using the gold nanoparticle. It's our goal to combine these two. Our goal to do the defected silica catalysis at 150 degrees Celsius, and that is very much possible. It's 400 degrees Celsius thermal conversion. When I say 150 degrees Celsius on the gold surface, and when the CO2 go on the gold surface, it gets activated, it gets bent, and that helps you to reduce the activation energy, and that helps you to reduce the temperature required for that particular reaction. Okay, Abhishek Chandra, have you determined the concentration of Mg in the synthesized DFNS as the heating time will alert the magnesium content? Yes, we washed out all the magnesium and we tried all different ways to do that, because one of the comments that you can say that, okay, that catalyst is happening because of the magnesium impurity in there rather than the defects. But we did all the techniques to use all the techniques to prove that there is no magnesium. In some cases, we observed the traces of magnesium. So what we did, we added more and more magnesium. And if the magnesium is really active side, then you should have better and better activity. But there was no change in the activity even after I add magnesium oxide directly. You don't wash and do the catalysis. So there was no change, so indicating that magnesium is not playing the role.
Vivek, can we take the last 1 or 2 questions now?
Okay. I'm just going by line, so I can do.
I
there's
totally
so many.
understand.
There's so many.
Yes.
Yeah. Maybe I didn't choose which one is interesting. Sanjay Nagarkar, the cold heating strategy also needs high feed pressure. Can you comment on energy advantage you get? No, why you need a high feed pressure? No, we want everything to be done at atmospheric pressure. We're not really need a high pressure reaction. So cold heating is only about the energy produced. The pressure part is not coming in. Obviously, if you do high pressure, you will get a better activity. Too many questions. Is it possible to treat polluted water with these nanoparticles? Yes, we have done some work where we have coated the DFNS with the TiO2, and TiO2, as we all know, can degrade the dye and several other pollutants in water. You can purify the water using this material.